Oh,
All
okay.
right, you're on.
I guess so.
We'll start with roll call. See you today.
Jesse Couple,
Here.
Ryan Green,
Here.
Ben Lee,
Here.
Kristen Hurst,
Here?
Steve Dyer.
Here. All right, let's all stand, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will open with item number 4 on the agenda, public comment for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
I did not receive any speaker slips
All right,
unless there's somebody that just didn't fill out.
we will roll on to action on the minutes.
Move to approve is written.
Second it. All right, Teresa, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry,
Oh,
we're having
timeout.
work issues.
Yeah.
Take that one. No, it's fine. I apologize.
Sorry.
There were no public comments.
No public comments.
And there was a motion to approve.
Ben made the motion, Steve seconded for the action on the minutes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Kristen Hurst. Yes. Steve Dyer,
Yes.
Jesse Couple,
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 6, we have tabled application 10-10-1, 795 West Coshocton Street. Conditional use permit.
Long time no see, everyone.
I'll make a motion to remove from the table for consideration.
A second.
All in favor of removing from the table?
Aye.
All right. You hear a word from our applicant.
So this is an application for conditional use so that I can remove the current vacuums at the car wash on Route 62 and replace them with more modern vacuums, which will be free for customers. The challenges that we had previously was there was not a recent survey that was completed so that we knew exactly where the setback was. And additionally, I think there was some questions about ingress egress for the property as well, which all was defined via the survey. So for the shared lot, we do actually, or between the ingress egress between CVS and the car wash, we do own that drive. And additionally, the setback is 30 feet, or is annotated on the survey. And we did move the location of the proposed vacuums to be 30 feet from that setback. It'll actually be residing on the asphalt. We'll have to drill up some of the asphalt, put concrete in, put the bases in, et cetera, but, so that we comply with that.
In the hallway.
So currently, it looks like, according to this map, you have a 35-foot setback between it looks like between the pavement there and the new vacuums.
Correct.
And you're still asking for removal of the street trees?
Removal is a strong word. I would like to replace. Right now, they're.
Are they being replaced on the street?
Yes, we'll still have the canopy trees on the street, but right now they're not evenly spaced. So we were gonna remove those trees, put like bushes to cover the ground, and then closer to the street would be cover trees.
Okay.
So we'll replace the current trees, but evenly spaced out in front of the car wash rather than, right now they're all towards the east side.
Is that in any documentation that I didn't see that in any of the documentation.
It was on the original application. I don't think I resent
I
it.
think the original application had you moving them to the rear of the property.
No, it had them on in front of the vacuums towards Route 62. Because I think there's 3 trees that we're going to be removing.
I remember it
Those
being
Right.
moving to the back.
I don't ever remember seeing a rendering like that.
I thought it was to move him to the back.
Right. I believe the previous ask was to remove them from the front and put them toward the rear. I don't ever remember you
We
saying.
were discussing that, but when the council mentioned that they wanted to keep trees on the fronts of the properties, and I said that was fine. I have no objections to that. I like the trees on the front of the property. So now it'll just be a replace, so that they're evenly spaced.
Okay. Does that?
I do remember that in conversation, though.
Okay.
You're right.
Perfect. I'll just tell you straight up, that for me was a deal breaker, because that wouldn't be fair to anybody else along that. Any of the corridors within the city where we've required them, most specifically Tech, I believe, we had them put street trees in when they were asking not to have them. But we asked them to put them in there because that falls in line with the strategic plan and Tree City USA and everything like that, so.
No issues here.
Okay, perfect. Well, I would just, one thing that I would suggest, because I don't see it in any renderings, nor did I see it in any verbiage, that if this were to move forward, that be a condition as a part of approval. It doesn't sound like there's any objection to that.
No objection at all?
I like the addition of the green, of the shrubs in front, that makes sense.
I think that came up in conversation last time as well, so I mean, we obviously want our business to be visually appealing. So if that's, if that's the recommendations of the council, we have no issues with that.
Have you thought about putting the vacuums towards the back of the property so it's not such an eyesore out front?
Good question. Yes, we have thought about that. That would make ingress egress extremely difficult. Primarily because you're having new customers come in from the same way that you're trying to have people back out and then get in line, because most people vacuum after they wash. So traditionally, car washes have the vacuums on the exit side of the wash. You know, moo-moo, things of that nature. Usually you go through the wash first, then you exit through the vacuum aisle, just because naturally there's a little bit of a breakup between the cars, whereas, I hate to say it, but people are flying around that corner coming into the car wash. It would just be a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
There's not room for it where the green space is back there now.
We've thought about adding it to the back, and
The reason I'm saying that is because when I look at, like, when I read it says, and it has to, like, be harmonious with the existing and intended character with those arches and I think it's very nice and good to have lighting for those. That's the part that, like, where I'm like, oh, is there anywhere else he can put those that it's not
concerned
like?
with the lighting, or just the visual appearance of them? With the lighting is the concern?
Well, the visual appearance, like, it's,
Okay.
like, I'm thinking that doesn't seem harmonious, but just wondering if you'd thought about that.
I have. I think they're going to look a lot better than the ones that we have currently. And plus, with the addition of evenly spaced out coverage trees and the bushes, I think it's going to be more visually appealing than what we have today.
One of the problems with what we have today, though, is it would never pass under current guidelines. So any amendment of what's already there probably also, it's hard to amend what's already there because it's so far from passing what we originally have. I mean, for me, is it an option to put them, I mean, in the rear of the property even, or
Say that again?
is it an option to put the vacuums in the rear? Or
Like where there's the big green space in the back of the property, like just pave that and put them back there.
So we have to comply with the 30% green space as well,
Yes.
right? So
So you'd have to give up green, you'd have to turn this part of the front into green space. Am I right?
ideally, the car wash would be set back an additional 20 feet, right? But it's,
But it wasn't.
yeah. So I'm inheriting an issue. We are trying to make it more appealing, better for our customers, better for the citizens of Johnstown by offering free vacuums, more convenient, better lighting for security and safety. And selfishly for a business, right? If it looks busier, more people are encouraged to go, right? So having them on the front side is also a benefit there. But to be honest with you, just safety. I would not want somebody backing out of a vacuum when people are trying to pull in. I mean, during the winter, when there's salt on the roads and we get busy, it backs up. So you would have to ask people to back up so somebody else can get in line potentially. I just think that it would be a logistics nightmare for it to be on the backside unless it was way outside of the way, which then I don't know if it would get as much use.
I'm almost more preferential in having the vacuums in the front just because of the rear proximity to residential and having the sound of the vacuum consistently. 'Cause you have those Clark Drive residents back there. If you put it at the rear of the property, I don't know. Aesthetically, that might not be pleasing to hear.
I don't, can you hear them from the apartments?
I think if they were in the rear, you'd hear them. The opportunity to hear them would be greatly enhanced. But aesthetically, visually, it's probably better to have them in the back. But in this case, in my opinion, I would err more on the side of the non-conforming buffering and having them in the front as a consideration. The lighting that you mentioned having on them, is that actuated by use, or is that consistent? Is that constant?
It's always on, is my understanding.
It would always be on. It is directional lighting though, so it will be angled towards the immediate vicinity
Why is it always on?
by design.
Okay. The only other consideration I have with that, with the lights being on, is one of the things that we take into account when we talk about, at least in safety and service and things like that, is the number of signs that are on the road in and of itself can be distracting for directional purposes, informational, et cetera. If you have something else on the side of the road that grabs your eye, though it may be good from a commercial or a marketing standpoint, could also be distracting. So
Sure.
I just, are there strobes? Is it movement? Is it static? Is it?
No, essentially the arm that has the hose going through it, there's a small LED strip that goes along that arm. So it's directional lighting right below that arm essentially. And like I said, it's going to be about 6 feet off of the ground, 6 to 8 feet off the ground.
All right. Is there a modification availability or no?
Anything is possible. I don't know.
Does it provide use for, like, is it helpful to use the vacuum to have those lights on it, or is it purely just to draw your attention to the factor there?
No, it's not going to affect the performance of the vacuum at all. It's when it's going to be most valuable is going to be evening
Right.
and morning, right? Because that's usually when it starts to get dark. Folks may still be there. I mean, we don't do much business at midnight, right? So not many people are going to be there vacuuming out their cars, although there have been people on occasion. So it's not going to affect the performance at all. From what I remember and seeing them in use, they're not significant. They're not that bright. You would likely not see them noticeably over the current parking lot light.
So it seems like a lot of people on this board are concerned about having them up front and like to see them on the sides. And looking at other cities, sometimes they put them on the side of the building. Sunbury has them near the front of the road as well. Originally, I was against it because it seems just like an intrusion into our old small town, Johnstown. But and you say it's a benefit that people can free vacuums. It seems more like a sure, I guess, but that's kind of irrelevant. The idea that I originally was like, but looking around, I'm seeing that other cities have them, and I feel like haven't heard back from the community either about how they feel about it. People I've talked to saying, yeah, why not?
Well, there are 3 already there, and I think they're in use every time I drive by.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
I
I'm
think
getting
it's
to.
almost expected, really, sometimes a car wash to have like that vacuum service. That's how I feel.
Oh, especially now with some of the competitors and how they
Yeah.
operate. Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure that the whole site itself, as well as the vacuums, are aesthetically in line with what we want to see from a presence.
And what are the hours of is it 24 hours?
24/7 service.
I mean, you're really.
So the vacuums are not going to be running 24/7. The lights will be on 24/7. But the vacuums themselves, like your tunnel car washes, like your Moo Moos and turbo washes, things of that nature, they have a central vacuum station that they essentially turn on during business hours and they turn off at the end of the day. These are going to be like a push button. You walk up when you want to use it, you push the button and it'll run for X amount of minutes, and then it will just automatically shut off. If you need more time, you push the button again. So it won't be constantly running at night.
But you could get vacuum at night.
You could get somebody vacuuming at night, but the caveat with that be is if they are vacuuming at night, it's only going to be for a couple minutes, then it'll shut off, which would be the benefit for the sound barrier of having the building between it and Clark Drive.
Two big things for me are the trees. I think that's been satisfied by what you said tonight. And then the lights on the unit itself, if there's not a functional need for them, then my thought is either they're disabled or they're actuated upon use. But to have them on 24/7, if it's not needed, I think there's enough light pollution, especially over in that area.
And as everybody figured out this weekend, we don't need more light pollution in this city.
But there's a lot coming over there, especially from those places that don't have downlighting or LED downlighting to where it focuses it more. That's my suggestion. I don't know what everybody else thinks. Or if lighting doesn't matter to anybody else. I'm looking at 13103E.
I mean, it seems like this board has no problem with you putting the vacuums in the front. It's mainly the lighting.
It is. For me, that's where I'm like 113103A, like
Do you need the
saying
lighting?
we have to meet those requirements. I don't think it's like meeting the intended character of, like, for me, like when it looks very modern. I think it looks like, I think they're cool. I would like to use them. I don't think, like, when I look at this and says we can't approve it unless it meets that, like, I don't know how I get there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the,
What it says is, it says, the commission shall not approve a conditional use unless it shall, in each specific case, make findings of fact directly based on particular evidence, shall meet all of the following requirements. And this one that I'm looking at and having trouble with is, will be harmonious with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such use will not change the general character of such area. So I think when I look at that, like the way it is now, without the arches and the lights, it kind of blends in, and it doesn't stand out to look, like it just kind of blends in with the character of, like, the area.
We're
It
trying
does
to get
change
more of
it.
a rural feel out here, so, like maybe, what are the country?
Like, what are the
car
options
washes?
that you might have?
Don't
Like,
compare me to Gehenna, like compare me to another rural town, like, what does Granville have, or,
like, I don't want to say no, but I don't know, given this, and I don't know how I can say yes if I'm not, I don't know how to get there. Does that mean-
no, I understand.
That makes sense.
On the front.
There are trees in the front.
Yeah, they're gonna remove them.
but there's other lights, there's other vacuum,
That's what he said.
Those seem less
there's
intrusive.
other vacuum
maybe.
companies or structures that you could look at, right?
Yeah, so we can obviously disable the lights that are on them, if that's
makes sense.
the hiccup.
Well, I think it's the arch thing too, like the picture of them, that's, like, for me, that's like a
Have you
visual
looked,
piece.
have you looked at other options, like other models?
So going back to, real quick, if I could, Kristen, so another benefit of having those arches is ease of use, right? So right now, customers have to lean over a trash can to wind up the hoses, or they just don't wind them up.
Yeah.
They will leave them just laying wherever, people will run them over. So another aspect of this is ease of use. If I make it easy for them to wind up the hose, it'll happen, right? We're creatures of habit, that's how it works, the same way. So that's another benefit of having that arch, is it's easier to vacuum your car with it, you're not dragging it over the top of your car, but also it's easier to clean up when you're done. So it may help with just the cleanly appearance of the car wash rather than having hoses that are leaning over the asphalt and you can see it as you're passing by. And I'm sorry, what was your question?
Have you looked at other models?
I have. These ones, they perform really well. They're not vastly different than what we see as a growing standard within the car wash industry. So, I mean, they seem to fit my bill. they may not align with the city. To be honest with you, I don't know how much different we could get unless we just said, no, we want to stick with the current plan.
Are you,
As far as vacuum.
Somebody was
Right.
checking, you need to run it out of
I don't
send
know.
an email.
I mean,
so it's
to be honest with you, like the vacuums are pretty well defined at this point. There's not many big changes between competitors when you look at them, to be honest. Like the canisters themselves are all relatively the same.
I guess another, to make them look more rural, you could put like wood
I've accepted it.
housings around the metal canisters or something like that, as, to make them more aesthetically pleasing, right?
You mean this canopy? I thought you were-
Well, wood is the maintenance.
That's what he described.
You may maintain it really nicely, but in 20 years, if you don't own it anymore, who's maintaining it then? So I'd always advocate for a steel or more of a permanent
that's what that.
structure of less maintenance. Plus, easier for you too. But
So these are all, it's all steel. The bases, it's all steel. So this image is a representation of it. However, we're not going to have the canopies. It's not going to have
Game changer.
Yeah.
For me.
You're not going to have the change. You're not going to have the. All you're going to have is you're going to have the singular post for each vacuum with the vacuum itself and one arch coming over with the hose.
Big difference.
That's it. You're not going to have the canopies.
Okay, so if you're not
It's not in the
using,
budget.
So,
You'd be surprised how expensive those things are.
that is a different thing.
So we don't
How do the,
we don't have a picture of the actual.
we don't, like, what's it look like without
Yeah, so I mean, it's just gonna be the singular post here with this one arm, and then the canister itself. That's it.
and you're gonna have total number?
6.
6.
6 of them evenly spaced on the side of the car wash.
So if we were to make a motion to allow them without the lights in the tree situation, would, we have to just talk about what lighting would be there? Or would you use existing lighting?
Well, the parking lot lighting's gonna be there.
There is currently I think there's currently 2 parking lot lights, however, one's in-op because the trees cover it. So another reason why I wanted to evenly space the trees is so that we can leverage that street light.
That's better.
Well, and right now there's 3, right? And they do get busy, and you have how many
There's
bays?
6 there now,
There's
actually.
6 vacuums, there's 3 islands
Yeah.
that the 6 vacuums are on, correct.
Are you planning to put them like in, like twos together so it's less, like, so it looks more like that and so it's like not so, like much of an eyesore?
Just evenly.
It'll be evenly spaced, so the islands would go away. So we would remove the islands completely, and we would evenly space it, so there would be essentially be like 6 parking spots, and each one would have its own arch.
So instead of together.
Which, when we evenly space out those trees and add some cover brush, or cover bushes, for the ground.
How many trees?
3?
Honestly, I'm open to it, right? Like, I'm not-
I mean, there's
I'm not gonna let
definitely a
trees.
requirement.
I'm trying to
There's
figure out how
definitely
we'd make a hedge.
requirement that we have.
What?
There's a required amount just for the green space. The green space itself will have to have extra trees too.
Okay, so can you clarify that? The green space will have extra
Yeah,
space?
what's
The
the-
green space in the back or the
So
front?
there's a set requirement for the amount of trees the property would have to have. It's based on acreage, I believe.
Right,
So
since he's updating the front, do we have to,
Sean's probably looking for it over there.
Yeah.
No, I've got it, in my, I think I've already provided it in a
Oh,
staff report,
let me
actually.
find it.
Do you want
I
to?
don't wanna interject.
Well, let's
your
go back
discussion until.
Let's go back, let's take a break here and go to our staff analysis,
Thank you.
which we usually start with.
You're fine. I think you guys are hitting all the points that I would probably be asking, and one is, let me define the process here a little bit, why we're able to kind of dive into some realms that maybe aren't always dived into. So it's a conditional use permit because the use is a conditional use. So that's why we're having to go through this. So conditional use really means that you can ask a variety of expectations. Typically, they have to meet all the zoning standards that are put in place. As long as they meet those, game over, good to go, not coming before the board. Like I said, it's conditional use, so that's why we're before the board. You can put really any condition that you find appropriate. It's gotta be defendable probably. Inappropriate one and can't be defendable, and we can still play that game as well. But the other piece that I wanna add that complicates this is it will have to also go before the design review board. So you guys are asking some design and visual questions that I believe are totally appropriate, and a conditional use kind of allows that process to take place. If it wasn't for that conditional use, the design piece would really be up to another board. You wouldn't have any authority to do that. But here we are, we're under a conditional, so the things that you're asking, appropriate. I think the lighting would be one that I would be concerned about. Is it a blue light that's associated? I saw the blue things, and I've seen the internal illumination of the particular car wash in and of itself. It has some visual lighting inside that aren't just white lighting for visualization purposes so that you can see. It seems to be more from a marketing standpoint, so that would be one question, defining whether it's a white light or if it's a blue light, kind of like a Vegas light. That would be a concern that I would have, obviously, in the context that I put it. 6 canister stations, currently they have 3. I would agree, looking at the intensity of what 6 canisters look like compared to 3 is an appropriate question. To the trees, and I think that's where this segued into. They're also gonna have to meet a variety of items, and it's all the way at the end. Additional district requirements that would be needed to satisfy this prior to the issuance of a certificate, a zoning certificate. So of those are street trees. I believe there is a minimum spacing of 26 feet. So you would have to have every 26 feet a tree associated with that, and that's just for the street trees. They gotta be a canopy tree that's associated with those street trees. Also with trash screening, the current dumpster enclosure is not enclosed, so typically when these conditional uses come up, we try to make as much as the site in compliance with what would be, to Ryan's point, what is acceptable now. This is a new conditional use permit, so it's not inappropriate for you to require that the screening would be consistent with what the code requires, whether it be vegetation or some type of fencing that's associated with it. There's also parking lot trees and landscaping trees. So for every parking space, you have to have a certain minimum of trees. I believe it's 5 parking spaces, you have to have 1 tree. So you mentioned 6. I don't know if we want to count the stalls inside of the particular building as parking spaces. We could probably have a little bit of an arm wrestling match over that, and see how that goes, and see how many parking spaces to tree ratio we can get. Also, the lot coverage, they also look at lot coverage whenever it comes to whenever it comes to canopy trees that are needed for the entirety of the lot. Can't have so much lot exposed without some type of island associated with it. So that's another thing that we'll have to look at. Screening, you don't have any residential that you're contiguous to, so that piece, I believe you're gonna be okay. But there's still some landscape requirements. Signage, the current signage is not in conformity, so if that was a condition that this board wanted to evaluate as well, that's something that you're within your ability to look at and request for some type of compliance be put in place with the signage associated with the conditional use permit. So really today what we're doing is a conditional use permit. I get the design is a really important element, but there's other pieces that are a factor into this. So I would encourage the board to look at those other factors as well as the design. The design will get scrutinized again at the Design Review Commission. So not to give a false sense of hope, if they really are okay with the design of the vacuums, it may go before design and review board and they say, just not feeling it. Or they may say, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread and give me 10 more of them. I don't know.
Not to go down a rabbit hole, but in the design review, in this section, that's our corridor district, which is, usually we're wanting businesses up closer to the road. We want those trees, we want the sidewalk up close to the road. So there's a number of things that are gonna be an issue that you run into over there, but I'd like to get you as close as we can here, probably before we send you over there.
Does this have a sidewalk out there?
Sidewalk, so the list of things that we had you walk out of here with last time, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had the sidewalk at the property line, the dumpster enclosures, the green space and the trees, the setback and the signage, and the lift station were all the major issues that we sent you out of here with last time. Lift station, we found out is yours.
Correct.
So hopefully you don't cave it in, but if you do, that's on you.
I'm moving further away from it, so
Yeah.
we should be in the clear.
So sidewalk to the property line, where are we at on that?
Yeah, it's like 1 square.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll shore that up.
Okay. Dumpster enclosure,
I have no issues with that. My wife hates it the way it is.
Okay.
So we'll absolutely make that happen.
Is that,
so our standards that we have, do we have a standard for the city at all on the dumpster enclosure, measurements, height, all that?
There is. They have not too many options, but some options, whether it can be natural vegetation mixed with some type of fencing or permanent masonry structure, that could be in place. My assumption would be, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, probably some type of wood fencing or vinyl fencing wrapped around that with the trees that are associated with it. It's up to the board if they wanted to see additional screening from a vegetation standpoint. If there was a desire to have arborvitaes or something around the dumpster enclosure, that is a additional provision. Really, with the conditional use, there's a lot of latitude, but I think, again, make it defendable, where there's a precedent-setting situation. We're just picking up things.
Yeah. I'm less about the materials of it. There's obviously enforcement with those, no matter what material it's created from. It has to be upkept, obviously. You want it looking good at your own business, so. I would say, since there's not a lot of screening between this business and the residential area behind it, I would advocate for some sort of arborvitaes or screening, something of that area, just to dress it up so that the residents aren't looking out their back window straight at the trash can. So I'd advocate for something like that. I know there will be, according to this, there will be some trees in between. That leads me into the next part, the green space and the trees. As Sean said, there are requirements for all of that. Setback, we've now gone to 35 feet, which inside of GCC 2, I think we have a minimum of 30. But that's for the building.
It's actually for any, you're absolutely right, I'm sorry to interject. It's for structures, and that actually came from Trevor. So kudos to MKSK for pointing out that it's a permanent structure, it's a permanent fixture, so that 30 feet requirement for the vacuums was one of the provisions that he put in place, sorry.
And that's where it conflicts with our design reviews, you'll probably see, because they have a much shorter setback that they're shooting for, but you're not moving a building, so.
I want to.
Yeah. So we have that, and then the last thing I had, lift station, again, that's yours. So, I think as far as things that we left here last time to fulfill, those were the items. So as long as we can fulfill those and whatever else you guys have for today, I think we're on our way.
Signage, I think, was the other one, if you have a desire.
Signage is gonna be a big one, because that sign that is currently there is not, I don't think it's gonna comply.
I can definitively tell you right now, it does not comply.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're advocating for shorter, lit differently, probably in a different location. So we're gonna need something that complies with the current guidelines. And we can supply those as well.
So what's the time frame on these conditions, right? Do these have to be completed at the time of
They have to
the
be,
application or the request? So the requested upgrade, so for instance, if I'm installing these vacuums, it has to be done before I can install the vacuums? Is it within a year of
so
application?
you have to have the plan when we approve it. So we have to know what everything is gonna look like. There has to be a plan in place when we approve it. And then obviously as you complete the project, you know, things are gonna fill in as they do. But we can't give you approval until there's a plan that we can approve.
I think what he's asking is, once you approve it, does he have to do certain things does he have to get it signed before he can put the
They all have to be
the
done at
vacuums
once.
in?
Yeah, they all have to be, you're gonna do them all at the same time. And obviously, like, I know how construction projects go. You're not gonna get them all done at the same time. And if it takes you till winter, you're not gonna put the trees in necessarily. You know, you might have to wait on weather, things like that, so.
Sure.
And you're asking, is there a limit? Like, do you have to do it within a certain period of time within approval, probably?
Right.
Within
So,
approval,
I
it's
mean,
2.5 years.
Here's my concern, right? Is I'm asking to change vacuums. Vacuums. At the end of the day, they are vacuums. I know that we want the city to look nice. We want the city to be approachable. We want a well-rounded city for all of the citizens of Johnstown, and I also want that. But at the end of the day, I'm only asking for vacuums, right? And changing the location, adding shrubbery, adding trees. None of that happens if I don't do this permit process, right? Like, none of that happens. So I could leave the car wash the way it is now and, you know, just have the dumpster exposed, not have the sidewalk fixed, not have the trees evenly spaced, not add shrubbery. And, like, would we be okay with that?
That's your leverage, right?
And I don't, so, let me be clear, right? I'm a little upset, but I understand where you all are coming from. But from a small business standpoint, it's like the straw that's breaking the camel's back here, right? Like, how far are we willing to take this so that it's an updated process or an updated car wash to the standards that we have? And I understand that that's the goal, and that's my goal as well. I don't want to stick out. I want us to be a part of the city more so than anything, right? That's why I get involved with the school athletics. I do things to try to make myself part of the community. And this is just, like, this is getting to be too much, truthfully. So that's my concern, right? I understand that the sign does not comply, but that is going to be a significant additional cost to adding vacuums to a car wash.
I appreciate you saying that. One thing going through my head was, at what point are we at the diminishing return with respect to what you're trying to do? And does the process itself inhibit updating those things that need updated at the cost of everything else for a property that may have not been touched in a long period of time and is out of compliance in a variety of different ways, so. I think that's a very valid point, because the board wants to support small business, in my opinion, and doesn't want to inhibit growth or updating.
What is the current sign and what are the signs?
Part of the negotiation, so we try to push as far as we can, not too far.
Yeah, what is it? How the line is it?
I wish
No, I mean, it's part of the ownership process. When you buy a property, looking up, you know, is it compliant with everything it needs to be compliant with, and doing the due diligence and everything like that. That's how this all comes into play. So looking at it and knowing, you know, what you want to update, where your business plan is versus, you know, what the code says, that's a big part of it. So I definitely understand that, you know, you want to update this. I'm a small business owner as well. I get it. As are a couple of us up here. It's just that when things are out of compliance and you want to be able to come in and update them, there is a certain level of update that you have to hit.
Absolutely.
So,
and that's why, you know, for me, I'm okay with updates, and I'm okay with the conditions that are being put in place. But I would just ask for some leniency, right? Like, the sign may not be in the books right now. We can do the shrubs, we can add the green space, we can add the trees to the green space. We can spruce up the front But the sign, I just don't think it would be in the books, so I would have to withdraw the application entirely.
Well, but the problem is, if we require other people to comply with sign requirements, and then we give you a conditional use and we don't others, and we're not consistent in how we apply it, that puts us in a bad position too,
Sure.
right?
Understand.
Yeah, it takes the human aspect out of it, because we have to be robots, right? So the sign, it's all one piece, there's no way to cut it in
The
half.
brick, the concrete it sits on is there.
The height.
So the top would have to change, right?
So it is one solid structure. I wish it wasn't. But it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, if you could,
Just has a
what's
brick.
our current one? It needs to be 4 feet.
I'm not sure that there's a height requirement. I'd have to go in and check real quick, but I believe from a monument sign, I believe the maximum square footage of a monument sign is 50 square feet. So just roughly looking at this is probably double, so it's probably 100 square feet. Just rough numbers here.
Right, I think I installed 8-foot LED lights in there, so you're pretty close, 64
Yeah.
square feet.
GCC 2,
Yeah, again,
maximum height 15 feet.
Oh, 15 feet.
and then the square foot, is it 50, Ben?
It's 50.
Had to give me one of the fancy books instead of this silly computer.
Do we have timelines on conditionality?
I think it would probably, as a condition goes, you may be able to condition things from a time perspective, but I would caution you to not run outside of our normal procedure.
Not so change precedent.
Yeah, I'm trying to look through the normal permitting process. So for a COA, for instance, I believe the total construction has to be done over a 2-year period. Zoning certificate, which is what I'm desperately scanning right now, construction, zoning certificates of compliance issued on the basis of plans, yada, yada, yada. Void fee, there's a provision in here somewhere that does give a time requirement expiration. If the work described in any zoning certificate has not began within 12 months, so that's you gotta start it within 12 months. From the date of issuance thereof, not been completed within 24 months, so it's gotta be completed within 24 months. So, you have 24 months to complete the entirety of the project. After that date, then it would fall out of compliance, you'd have to come back. There is a provision in here that says you can come back
I'm good with
and ask
office
for
regulations and just leave it
an
aside.
extension by the Planning and Zoning
For me to sign
Commission,
has
which
to
is what we
change.
just went through with, I believe, Tech International. They had to do an extension to the permitted process that they went through.
So if we set a new sign, you'd have 2 years to do it,
That would
With the
help.
potential of an extension.
with the potential for extension.
Some of the conditions are gonna be easier to approach than others, especially with trees and things like that.
Just as a.
By then,
rec-
you might have a whole different board up here.
You guys might have a new car wash owner.
Aw.
As
What
a
were you gonna
recommend-
say?
As a recommendation, the existence of a sign, I think, adds a different element. So if there was a motion to pass or would not pass, I would just be very defined in why a sign is allowed to be in nonconformity for 2 years. Obviously, the building didn't exist and the sign.
Because
was
they have
put
30
up.
days on a sign,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
So you would need to probably outline that it's a non-conforming sign and it already exists. With a new building, you're getting a zoning certificate, you got 24 months to construct it. However, this is already there. It's a little bit of a different situation. So if you did go down that path, just make sure you call out.
It
some-
has to be completed within 24 months, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the allowability that it is allowed to be in non-conformity for a 24-month period. Like I said, it's a little bit different. So if you put a time frame in as a condition,
Is there a
you
time?
could do that. But I would caution to go any further than 24 months. From a staff trackability makes it difficult.
I
You
don't,
can just
have we
plug
had
it to the
a
applicant.
condition on a sign before? I don't remember, and modifying a sign.
We haven't had a lot of conditional uses come before the board. I
When
know
when the business changes hands, how fast do they have to change their sign?
There's no provision for whenever the business changes hands. It's only a provision of a change of use or a
Right.
change of the actual signage in and of itself, if they modify the sign in any way. But a provision for changing hands from an ownership perspective, they don't typically do that. That's considered a taking. So if you had a non-conforming business use and it were to be sold, and to say that they can no longer operate that business would be considered a taking, and then you'd have to compensate the landowner. Zoning laws, so just walking through that.
And how's 2 years sound?
It sounds more appealing than trying to do it all within 6 to 12 months. Right?
I think we all want the same thing.
We do.
I don't think anybody wants to see you fail,
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
you know?
Yeah, you would get much different answers if my wife was here, because she also wants the sign to change. So it's already in the books at some point, right? But it just, we can agree to change the sign in 24 months. I will have to get with Sean and Terry to understand kind of what that expectation is.
Note the mention of the extension potential if, in terms of needing to come back to the board and that being an option for whatever reason. Not to say anything would be granted or denied, but
Absolutely, yeah, I don't anticipate needing the extension, but it is definitely something to keep in the back pocket.
And the lighting, is it blue lighting or is it white lighting?
Or,
Like, out.
or you're saying for the vacuums?
Mhm.
It's probably gonna be close to 5,000 Kelvin.
I don't know what that means.
It's a happy medium between like a yellowish light versus like a bluish light. Anything above 5,000 Kelvin is gonna get you more of a
requirements
bluish
on a
light.
sign.
you weren't here for design review earlier, right?
Yeah.
What we talked about.
Is it,
Seems to be the
So
topic of the
the
evening.
warmth of it, and I think what Kristen was looking at was, is it going to be literal blue color to replicate and intensify the blue that's associated with stainless steel? Or is it going to be a white lighting? And then we can get into the degrees of Kelvin, which I think was where you were going, whether it's a warm white or if it's a cool white, that's gonna be associated
that's a
with the.
design review does.
Luminosity.
It's a white light.
Okay.
White light.
Will it be on all the time, or just whenever the button is pushed to activate the light for the visibility of what they're doing?
It'll be on all the time.
That was my,
It's directional. It's directional. It's not gonna broadcast outside of just its little triangle that it'll be doing on the ground.
that was my pushback as a distraction from the street and additional lights, that it's
Right.
either actuated at use or it's disengaged.
Just for clarification, and sorry I'm interrupting the board again, I thought the light was like kind of affixed to the hose. I'm thinking of my Milwaukee tools at home that have this really
Nope,
cool
it's gonna be up,
LED.
right up above.
But you're saying that it's just a
It's
light.
gonna follow the arch.
Yep, it'll be right on the arch.
Okay, so it's not necessarily for,
On the underside of that arch.
okay, so it's not for the visibility of what they're actually vacuuming. It's more of just lighting up the vacuum area.
Correct.
Okay, and I'll step back, but I got the clarification that I needed.
They'll be similar to the bovine themed competitor down the street.
We don't speak about that.
Right.
Yes, they'll be similar.
Down the street. What are you trying to find?
Down 62.
He's referencing.
New Albany. I'm not
Oh,
gonna say
New
it.
Albany.
I'm not naming anybody's names.
That hurt a little bit.
I was just trying to
It's way down.
conceptualize and paint a picture for people.
It'll look similar.
It seems, yeah, they seem like a similar look.
Personally, I'm not in favor of the lights. That's me.
Yeah, I'm not as well. I think there's quite a bit of lighting there currently. I know that we're trying to get away from a lot of lighting on signage and things like that. We're trying to decrease intensity, things like that. So I don't think I would be for them as well.
I don't think the lighting's gonna be a deal breaker for me if they're not in use, mainly because getting the use out of that street light again
Yeah.
Yeah.
might be sufficient.
I think for my calculations, 5 street trees, 120
that's what I
feet
came up
frontage. In my opinion,
Put whatever you want.
It's
That'd be
120
4.6.
footage, so you're
That's
saying 5 street trees?
120 foot frontage is what you provided, yeah.
Correct, so
Yeah.
5 street trees?
It's 24 foot on caliper
Okay.
at minimum, but we could say 5
Yeah.
would suffice.
Are they 3-inch trees?
And then coverage is, I think 2 street trees in addition for lot coverage, which is 1 for every 5,000 foot.
We'll start making a list of these for,
Oh, I got the calculations already on my desk, I just didn't,
No, I know, but we're gonna put these in as conditions.
sorry. Well, it's a conditional, you can have more or less, whatever you want.
so you wanna make a list of these.
But
Start.
it's in the code, I mean, it's 1183.
No lights.
So you're just following the provisions. So,
And
Sign
from
updated
from
within
just
2
the
years.
placement standpoint, I honestly, I have 5 trees for the front. I don't know if anybody else thought about it. We can keep 3 out front and have the other 2 in the back, have all 5 in the
I
front.
think it needs 5 in the front, and I think if you want additional in the back,
To be fair for what we did to Chase, we made Chase, but I mean, like I said, each one of these sets a precedent, and we try to apply them all evenly. So
If Chase got more signage than they're allowed to with the code though, without a variance.
But this is a
Different
I
kinda-
haven't seen any trees.
different kind of signage
yet
spread
either.
over the entire property, though.
Yeah.
Small signs spread over the entire
We
property.
should have the same 24 feet per,
Right.
I don't know, I wasn't here for that.
I would say 5. And what are they? What are they? 2-inch, 3-inch trees?
for which piece, there's like 3
Frontage.
different street tree, or
I
not
think
street
3-inch
trees,
caliper is
landscaping.
the street
Right.
trees, 3-inch caliper.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good
you
with
got street
3-inch
trees, and then
caliper.
you got, parking lot landscaping, which has a provision, parking lot area shall contain a minimum of wood deciduous canopy tree for every 10 parking spaces. And then landscaping material,
If I take this to Oakland Nursery, they're gonna be able to help me with my
For
trees.
sure.
It's
Yeah,
3-inch
they have a great
calipers.
landscape
3-inch
designer.
3-inch.
well, and the zoning
Everybody I
requirements
know,
have
I'm just
acceptable
saying,
trees.
I-
I've seen
3-inch
them.
I've had them come out and like draw it on for our house.
And if you have an architect or anybody that you're working with, they'll be able to get you in touch with a landscape designer that'll help you with all this.
He's trying to get that cost.
So it sounds
They
like
have it done in
the,
their house.
Do we say, do we come to an agreement with how many parking spaces we think
No,
are
no one-
there?
No one said a
6
number.
for the, like, so we have 5 out front, and then 6 for the back, by the vacuums.
There's at least 9, because you have, or wait, what?
What, you have 4 bays,
You have
right? 4.
6 out front, and you have 4
5
bays,
bays.
5 bays? Okay,
11.
so there's at least that many.
11,
Um,
so there's 16 trees. Right?
And then
are
one
we really
for every
counting the
10
bays
spots.
as parking spaces?
Let's give
I
him
mean,
a
yeah, the
break.
car's
Or
gonna
the
be parked
space
there to
behind the
vacuum.
bay.
We want him to have 16 trees. Right now, there's 3.
Would you put the others in the back, Ben? Is that what you're talking about, like to have a buffer?
That seems like a lot,
I didn't
guys.
see any.
I don't know where else they would go.
Like, all I'm thinking is, like, they said, talked about the buffer, like, in the back, like,
Yeah.
between the homes back there.
Right, and.
We could ask for
What is-
arborvitae's
What
back
defines
there.
a parking spot? A place where somebody would get out of their car?
I don't think we have parking spots defined for car washes.
We don't. So,
I mean, by definition, you're gonna park your car to vacuum. So you're not gonna vacuum it.
All
while
the
you're-
vacuum spots are
yeah,
definitely
the
parking.
vacuum is
Maybe the
probably one where
self-service,
there's
and people don't get out of their car and
parking
the automatics.
space, but
So,
outside of that.
I mean, I would be okay with saying 8 parking spots.
Yeah, I would just count the bays and the parking for the vacuums, and that's it.
It's only
I
one
think that's
tree
pretty,
per
I think
nine.
that's generous because obviously there's
One
more.
tree per
Is it?
10
Yeah,
parking
so if you
spaces.
have 9 parking spaces or 10, you're still only gonna put one tree.
Additional
To the five.
5 for on the street.
Yeah, so you got 5 street trees, and then from a.
I think we need at least three.
I think you need a few in the back, like,
At least.
You need a few on the back property line as a buffer.
And there's also a
Because you have
provision.
residential butting up against
Minimum
commercial.
trees.
So let's just call it, say,
Traditionally, there would be a
we could
buffer.
ask for arborvitae's though, or shrubbery.
So.
An evergreen,
Tree per
you
5,000.
can't
No,
say
you can't
the
do
type.
shrubs, you gotta be a
coverage.
tree.
Yeah, you could say an evergreen.
ground
Well, we can ask for whatever we want though.
Not if it's not in
Where
the
it's,
code.
it's getting
have a-
arbitrary at that point, but
he said there's a minimum tree for every 5,000
Yeah, you gotta have a
square feet of
minimum
ground
of
coverage.
one tree for every 5,000 feet of ground coverage.
You listed on here about 12,000 square feet in total coverage.
I think he's at 19,000 when you're looking at total ground coverage was the calculations that I did, so I round up to 20. Because if you get past 20, there's another provision which I'm gonna pull up, but I don't think we're there. So let's say you just do the 20 square feet, a minimum of one tree per 5,000 square feet, so
So if we
20,000
did-
square feet divided by 5, you're looking at 4 additional trees, plus the 5 in the front, plus the 1 for the parking lot. My ask would be in respect to what the intent of this code, they want canopy trees to reduce the impact of an asphalt parking lot. So that is the intended idea of a canopy. The sun is not beating down on the parking lot, producing a tremendous amount of heat. So the placement of the trees, my recommendation, consistent with your code, be in a way that shelters that parking lot from the sun directly impacting it. That's what was done at Troyer's, whenever they did some revisions to theirs. They were strategically tried to be placed around the parking lot to lessen the impact of that kind of urban sprawl, heat that's emitted from it.
So if he did 5 in the front and let's say 5 in the back along the back, like, that serves 2 purposes. One, puts shade part of the day on that blacktop and buffers. Does that serve 2 purposes?
Yeah, if you did
To limit
The
him to
one-
not have to keep buying trees?
the ones in the front are gonna be for the street visualization, so those are gonna be probably non-impactful from a parking lot piece. I would recommend it, putting one over here to give some canopy to the parking lot that exists here. Obviously, putting one here would not be good. And what it's trying to do is break up the parking lot space as well. So typically they call out for islands to be broken up, but then there's a minimum square footage. We're not gonna get into that. But then probably, another one here, something along that lines to kind of enclose that parking lot, to give it some shade, to prevent any of that heat and all the other good things that go away with the sustainability.
Okay.
Checking my environmental box today.
Yep, good job.
So
Thank you.
3 along the north, what is that, northeast?
Only concern is that there are, all the utilities come on that east side of the building. And I only own about 10 feet off of that. I don't know if that's a concern that the board would take into consideration, but that would be my only concern, is on the front side of the building with those utility lines.
if they can't go there, I'm fine with them in the back because, like I said, I'm pushing for a buffer between commercial and residential anyway. So if they can't go on the side, I think it's acceptable to put them across the back.
We, let's see, so Troyer's, they really threaded the needle with what they had to do. They're putting some along the strip right here. That's gonna benefit the Dollar Tree as well.
In the back.
Or the General Dollar, whatever you call it. So there's gonna be a good effect by it being there, but like I said, the general purpose of these canopy trees is to shelter the parking lot as much as possible, so utilities, if you didn't place trees where utilities were, you guys wouldn't have a single tree in the city, so.
Yeah.
I don't know
No
that I
weeping
would.
willows.
Yeah, new addition, that's where how you find the water lines. There's
Yeah.
maple trees on top of every water line.
That's where it's at.
That's to keep them in place.
Yeah. It's nice when they go through your water line too.
And when you have to take out the trees and replace.
Yeah.
If
Keeps the
that's
rotor
case,
guys
then
busy.
I have no concerns with
Okay.
placement
So that's 10 trees,
total.
3 along the north, what would be the northeast side near the parking lot and 2 on the southeast side.
If you want to give me a visual reference, I'll go, you're talking one here, Steve,
Yep,
one here,
2
two here, 1, 2, and then
2 along there.
2 along here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 street trees.
Mm-hmm.
I got a general sense of it. I think I'm gonna be able to track pretty.
I think that's appropriate because we want to use the existing lights out front for security. And then the last thing we need to mention is the fencing on the dumpster, is that correct? Sorry, I jumped on you.
Yeah, the enclosure of the dumpster. I mean, I'm not really picky on the material because there's code enforcement. Terry will go out there if it's not looking good and let them know.
The city can give you some examples.
I think there's some good examples. A lot of people are just doing wood, just 6 foot privacy, dog fence around it. Make sure that the gates work nicely. They can get in and out. I would advocate for some sort of screening,
Shrubbery or something.
shrubbery or something,
Between the
at least on the backside of it.
backside, meaning near, between the residential.
Yep.
Just for clarification, so I'll get yelled at later. Backside, just the south side, are we talking south side, east side, west side?
Between the condos and the trash can.
Rear property line.
Rear property
So
line would be the
just on the-
south side.
You got a box, on the south side of that box. Here, nothing along here, nothing along here.
Well, I think it would be better on the 3 sides and leave the one, is it only
Whatever
open
you
from the
want.
front?
It will, there's no enclosure now.
Oh.
So, I mean, you have access to the dumpster all the way around, but it will only open from the front when it's.
So I think we should have a 3-side enclosure, don't you?
Well,
The fence would have to be required to go all the way around as well.
but I'm
as
saying
some
like
visual
shrubbery, like if
ones.
you put shrubs all the way around it, then it just kind of it finishes it out.
Well,
right?
is the dumpster in the grass
like 2
area
more
or is it
bushes.
in the on the concrete?
You can somewhat see it on the image there. It's that little black dot in between on the back side of the asphalt there. Yep, right there.
Is it on the asphalt?
That's on the grass. I think that's the
Is it
shadow
on the
on
grass?
Now, that varies depending on who picks up the trash that week.
But it won't
When
once
you have an
a fence.
enclosure,
But once I have an enclosure,
that won't happen
it will
anymore.
hopefully be back in its spot every time.
So if it's on the blacktop,
Still put
should we
the
push it
enclosure on
into the
wheel.
grass area?
Right. Or they knock it over one.
That's a good
Whoever
question.
builds the enclosure is going to want it in the grass and put concrete pad in it.
Is there requirements?
Correct.
Can you just
I'm
do
gonna,
it
I'm
gravel or
gonna
does it have to
advocate
go
for
to
that. It would not be on the asphalt.
Because otherwise, you got to drill through that asphalt, and that's fine. You can do it. It's just not fun.
Asphalt's not great for structural.
Right.
So it'd be moved to the,
He's proposing putting in a concrete pad in the back behind the asphalt.
Right.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's right.
okay, so that's gonna have to be noted.
Since we're discussing that, is there a preference on location back there to keep in mind? I would like it to be somewhat easily accessible from,
Oh, you're going to have to put it there to get a truck in there. I mean, a good driver will get it anywhere, but that'll affect your business. So it's
Right.
going to have to stay where
if
it's at.
if it
so
went
that
on the
you-
far side,
yeah,
the
it's
concern
gonna
here
have to
is
stay where it's at.
they would have to pull in
That's
back
why
out
I
with
said just-
potentially traffic coming in.
Yep. Just clean structure and shrubbery around it. Arborvitae preferably, something. Yeah.
One-sided arborvitaes or 2-sided or 3-sided?
I think 3.
Well,
You guys are gonna have to vote on all this too, so
Yeah, I know.
we're gonna wrap all this into some kind of general conversation that makes sense,
At,
if you desire.
at least 2 sides. The south and the east side.
I heard south and I heard east.
At least those 2
Yeah.
sides, because that's where the residential will see it from.
I'm fine with 2, or 3, whatever you guys decide. Then
You're going to see it and do the other side though, because it's going to look weird.
you want arborvitae's?
Sure.
See,
I don't know if I would pick arborvitae, says I hate
I
those, but
don't really have a preference.
the concern.
you can pick whatever shrub you want.
The only concern I would have with doing arborvitaes is arborvitaes can get like 80 feet tall. So if the owner, right, if I choose not to maintain that, or if I sell it and the next person chooses not to maintain that, are you gonna want 80-foot arborvitaes in the back of your property?
Your wife will.
She will, you're right. And you best believe I'll be out there cleaning them up, but, just plain devil's advocate, some more.
What's this called?
Either way, I'd say
I don't think,
evergreen.
do we have,
evergreen
are there
trees of
acceptable
some-
shrubs? Like, can he pick his own shrubs? We have to I don't think we need to tell him which kind of shrubs, right? Or do we?
Let's see.
Oh yeah, we have a list of acceptable trees.
Okay.
It's 3 or 4 pages long.
Well, then let him pick his own shrubs.
Welcome to the government.
I'm with
We're here to
that.
help.
Let's call them shrubbery.
Yeah,
Bring your own
basically you just want it to have a
stenographer.
finished look.
That's how it works.
All right.
Screening of trash receptacles for commercial, industrial, office, institutional, yada, yada, yada. Container system
we're
shall
talking
be
about
located in the front yards and shall conform.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know why they said front, but, rear yard setbacks, the height of such screening shall be at least 6 feet in height. Natural
There you
vegetation,
go.
shall have a maximum opacity of 75%. At the full
Evergreens.
foliage, the use of year-round vegetation such as pines, evergreens is encouraged. I'm just reading from the code, I'm not giving you any opinion.
Appropriate shrubs.
So year-round evergreen shrubs.
Boxwoods would work. And
I like me some boxwoods.
Screening shall be 6 feet in height.
You good with evergreen shrubs?
yes, but just I hate arborvitae. It's a personal thing. Plant arborvitaes if you want to.
75%
I just think they all-
opaqueness. Remember to factor that in. You're picking up.
Terry will be out there checking.
Be out there with a light meter.
I think the purpose of that is so you
Checking
don't
your
have
tin.
some really sparse looking.
Be out there with a light meter checking the tin.
Sticks.
Terry's gonna have an email from me on
Yeah.
Monday being like, all right, so what needs done?
Somebody sign out the.
All right, are we
Did you
good to
write all
make
this
it?
down?
Sandwich also has to be provided to Terry on Wednesday. That's probably gonna get.
Would you like to go ahead and make a motion,
I
Steve?
think we have enough to put some conditions
Yeah.
together and vote. What do we think?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Steve make the motion since he's got our list here.
So good at these.
Oh, you want to open public comment?
Yes.
Do we have public comment?
Public just left.
I think we've slowly brutalized, accidentally
All right.
brutalized the public to leaving.
Hearing no other public comment,
Hey, good news is I wore them out for you guys, so you should be easy.
Smooth
we will
sailing.
close public comments.
All right.
Okay,
Oh my gosh.
it's the title. I'll make a motion to approve application 10-10-1 with the following conditions. One, that extends the sidewalk all the way down his property, so it's 1 square. We put in 5 street trees along State
62.
Route 62. We're gonna put in 3 trees on the southeast side of the property, near the parking lot,
That's
evenly
northeast,
spaced.
right?
Have a reference. if you like.
Northeast,
You can reference
Johnstown's
that.
orientation is
Exhibit
always
A,
fun
if you'd
with
like to
these.
Just do that.
yeah, Exhibit A, and then 2 trees on the, where's north?
It's called the rear property.
In the rear of the property.
Whoever put our
Not
city
gonna
in
use the
X instead of a
lights
T.
that are attached to the vacuums. You're gonna update the sign within 24 months
Yes.
To be within conformity.
to be within conformity. You're gonna put an enclosure around the dumpster and move it to a concrete pad on the grass and put the appropriate year-round shrubs on 3 sides of it.
Should we word that differently on the grass, instead of on the grass, say in green space area?
In the green space area south of the blacktop.
Yeah. I second the motion.
Oh, you're gonna make him join an NCA?
We didn't mention opaqueness either.
And I'm joking. on
Opaqueness is in the code.
White lighting.
In the
It's
code.
implied.
He's not
Unless
using
you
the
want
lighting,
to.
he's gonna use.
Like it's there, we have no way to measure it. That's just.
That's like our sound ordinance.
All right, Teresa.
Well, but Ben, did you have a condition that the lights are not on all the time?
Yeah, I think you
said
said that.
not-
Did you say that?
no,
Oh,
they're
okay,
not
my
gonna be
bad.
on at all.
I didn't hear it.
Either
Oh,
they're actuated at use or they're just not used, but just
We
not
said they're not
okay,
24 hour.
I missed that. My bad.
Would we be okay with actuated?
I'm fine with that, so they're not on them 24 hours a day.
Right.
Actuated at use. You seem surprised, Sean.
No, I'm just.
So you can,
I'm still on the
you think
MTA.
that's a functional
9.75.
option to, when you hit the button, that they come on?
Oh, absolutely.
Additional tax you put on the property.
Should just be a couple wires that you tie into the switch. It'll be easy.
I'm fine with actuated use.
The lights actuated upon
It'd
use.
be, it'd be small. We'll get there.
That's gotta be done
There
by
you go.
council anyway.
Get some
It
lights.
does.
Yeah.
You made the motion, somebody second?
I second.
Let's get moving.
All right. Steve Dyer,
Yes.
Jesse Couple,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Kristen Carson.
Yes.
See, we are small business friendly.
We love you.
You guys did a terrific job.
It's like Reagan said, we're
Can I back
from
in
the
my
government,
car?
we're here to help.
Good luck with the design review board.
All right, let's move on.
All right.
He thinks it's done. He hasn't seen nothing. He's gotta get before the freaking design review board. Well,
Let's move on to item number
Appreciate the time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
thank you.
7. Application 4-26-20 certificate of appropriateness, 213 South Cason Street demolition permit application.
Castle.
Let's start out with some staff background report.
I'll start off with some filler here. Again, we have a demolition application. You saw this for the first time at your last meeting, and we've got a couple of those tonight. So, same process, same provisions. The code hasn't changed, although at some point it will, and it'll give you additional requirements and procedures to look through. So, in your process, there are those 3 provisions that are pointed out for deeming it appropriate for demolition of the primary structure or an ancillary or secondary structure, as is the case with one of the applicants tonight. Actually, all 3 have secondary structures. So that's really the meat and the potatoes of it. This particular one is located on South Casson Street. It is in the back of the property. I believe it is an old barn or shed of some sort. We made special attention to the fact that it's not necessarily a shed. It does have a foundation to it. If it's a shed, I'm not gonna tell you to go through a process. I don't believe that's the intent or the requirement, but because it has a bit of a foundation to it, an old barn, that is why they're here today before you. So that, I'll let the applicant give their information.
Good evening. So I'm Harold Wright. This is my wife Jeanette. We have on our property in the back, the backyard, we have a 2-story barn. It's very old. It does not have any kind of foundation. It's on dirt. The thing is falling apart, is not in good condition. Feral cats like to live in the loft of the barn, the second floor. The barn is an eyesore, and we believe it is very dangerous currently. We propose to remove the barn and return it to green space, adding a shed, which will be smaller than the barn. It will provide actually better storage. The shed will be safe, attractive, new, and unavailable to feral cats.
So you're the one that has the cats that come in my yard.
That's right. The shed will be about 100 square feet. We are still currently trying to find the right shed for our purpose. Pending approval, we have plans for the removal of the barn in early June, soon to be followed with a new concrete slab and a shed, along with additional green space. There will be no lighting and no signage involved whatsoever.
Will you plant arborvitaes?
Please
You're not
no.
gonna paint mail pouch on the side of it?
It's a deal breaker for me. No, I'm just kidding.
Nail pouch, As much as, I would like that. My wife will probably be answering all the questions because she has done all the research. All the
Yeah, I'm not
preparation.
sure about there being a foundation. It's just a dirt
Is a
floor.
And I apologize. I was.
Oh, you're
referencing-
fine. Yeah.
I mean, when you said that, do we not need to have a permit after all?
No, and I'll correct.
There's gotta be some sort
I
of.
was looking
there
at more
somewhere.
of a shed situation where they bring it in, it sits on 4x4s. I'm assuming that
Post in the
this,
ground.
there's either posts that go into the ground with this particular situation, or that it is just, the structure is resting solidly on the ground. There's no subfloor that's kind of floating above the earth like a shed would typically have. So I consider a shed movable. This structure, I don't think you can move it. So that's why the definition of a
The barn.
structure demolition would be needed.
Almost looks like a carriage house.
It actually, I believe it was a
Yeah,
carriage house.
okay.
It's possibly 100 years old.
Yeah, makes sense.
Is your new shed single story?
Yeah, yes, correct.
It looks like this one was built on the property line. You're obviously not taking that same footprint.
No, we would come in, what did we say? Whatever,
I think it's 5 feet, is that
5
right?
feet.
5
Yeah.
feet from the
Yeah.
property line.
yeah, we're gonna get code with that.
You plan on extending the fence then too?
So, yeah,
Alright, so let's run
I've
through the
fixed
ringer.
that. We have a privacy fence all around the yard.
Do you? Okay.
And I actually did all that work. So now we have a couple of pieces that that I did not pour concrete and put the posts in. So we gotta pull those out so that they can get rid of the barn.
Yeah,
And then finish the fence.
okay. With the finishing of the fence, does that require any inspection?
It does, it's a fence permit. It
Even if
does
it's a
require an
completion
inspection.
of?
What's that?
Even if it's a completion of, like a
It's
small section?
It's like 2 or 3 fence panels.
Yeah, it's repair and replace.
Yeah, Sean.
It's repair and replace.
Why you make me be the bad guy? It's council's rules.
I'm just,
You can talk to them.
I'm just asking, because I didn't know.
Don't
if it
ask
was-
me a question you don't want the answer to, because I'm gonna refer to what's in the codified ordinance. It is
They
not
do
I
have
get in trouble.
that, so they do have on the auditor's side, that is labeled as a barn.
I just didn't
They
know
have
because it was a
recorded as barn.
completion of, and it's just
If
like.
there was a
link-
post there and it was broken, I mean, I could constitute that as a repair. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about going out there and digging, and you want my legalese.
Yeah.
Mr.
Because there's
Staff
a new
person
fence
answer, what I gotta
post.
tell you is. what it is.
Because in this case, the barn is acting as like that completion of the
Yeah, just
fence.
leave up some of the barn.
Right.
You're just replacing.
It's a cat
the-
door.
They're changing the type of your fence from this
There you
to
go.
that.
Yeah, that's what we would be doing.
I don't know how much a fence permit is, but, at this point, I'll make
We
it.
don't need use, we don't need.
50 to
posts in
75.
concrete.
So I would almost challenge to that point, like what Kristen said, that if
This
it's
was
on the
fun-
property
functioning as a
line.
fence.
If it's on the property line is already defined by that barn, as long as the fence doesn't take any different linear path than what that barn did, then there shouldn't be any need for a fence
So
post.
the reason for the
Or a-
fence
an
permit
inter-
is from a
inspection.
structural.
No, because if you go
standpoint.
from a 4 to
If
6.
someone were to put a post in the ground that's only 2 feet deep or 1 foot deep, then you're gonna have.
Okay.
A leaning
A
fence.
leaning fence after 5 years. So the intent of the fence permit is not necessarily for the fence.
Structural,
It's to make sure it
Okay.
carries out, looks in the hole, measures it.
okay.
3 feet deep.
you go from
We're gonna
4
put
to
up a
6
structure
foot
that's
fence, you have to get a permit.
Well, that
solid,
makes
that's gonna
sense.
last.
Even if it doesn't
for
change
a
the
number of
dimensions.
years. That's the intent of the fence
Okay.
permit.
Well, that makes sense then.
We do
That-
already have the fence posts that are ready to go in, and they
And the
they
panels.
would go down.
So you're
All right,
If you're
but
not
you're here
putting posts in the
today
ground.
for your barn demolition permit, right?
That's
right.
Okay,
Do we
so,
have any other questions from the board members? If not, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
second it.
Teresa?
Jesse and Steve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jesse Couple,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes?
Kristen Hurst,
yes.
Steve Dyer.
Yes. I'd like to compliment you on your application. Very well done.
Yeah. Good info in there.
We both have degrees in English. She's a teacher. We had kind of.
Very
Oh,
No
good.
chat.
thank you. I just
no
think you
chat
did well.
GPT,
Good job.
huh? No chat GPT, huh?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right. We are now moving on to number 8, item number 8 on the agenda, application 4-26-40, certificate for appropriateness, 5254 Clover Valley Road, demolition permit application. And if we could start out with our city manager, a little background on this project.
Sure. This is part of the development project that is happening out there called the PD District. They have been annexed into the city. The future use of that particular site is obviously defined in the council ordinance that passed the PD District. Other than that, it's it would appear that the applicant is wanting to tear down the structures in order to follow through with the permitted PD application that was submitted to council back in October of last year and approved by them, so, that's where we're at. I'll let the applicant speak for the intended use or not use of it. I don't wanna put words in their mouth, so. There's not a lot here, then.
Thank you. Jamie McNally with the applicant, with the Johnstown Land Company, affiliate of the New Albany Company. We're the owners of the property, and this is a standard operating procedure for us. Technically, right now, I believe the house would be an existing non-conforming use now that it's been rezoned to industrial, and we intend to develop it as industrial. Now that the homes, this topic and the next topic on the agenda are the same thing. Now that the homes are vacant, we will be demolishing them for safety and to prep them for industrial use so that we have shovel-ready sites for the end user.
Do we have any questions from board members? Any public comment?
We live next door.
We're
We just wanna know what's going on.
We're just curious as to what's gonna happen. I mean, they purchased this home, that.
Jamie, can we give them a mic for a second?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Come on
yeah.
up to the mic.
It's on the state.
My speech won't be that good, man.
Can you state your name for the record too?
Jared Belinsky. We're just curious as to what's going on. If you look at this, I'm 5320. So, this is me. Right here. Right? That's me, right? No, it was 5320. That's me. This is gonna be tore down. These two houses were just sold to your company as well. About 8 years ago, there was an opportunity to build industrial park there too. And there was a drawing that was done that showed a water reserve that will be held there. This was 8 years ago. This is totally different. Well, yeah. So we're just curious, as if you look at the map, you get this whole thing. And then you had 2 white zones and then us. We hadn't sold. They came and talked to all of us once. They came and talked to these 2 people again. $650 and $1 million for the houses. So what's up with us? What are you building?
Industrial and yeah,
Do you have
industrial
a
user.
What, yeah.
So-
We're just curious as to what's going on. I mean, we live there and we have no idea.
We came to the right place to get the
Well-
information.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So, as with the scale of what we're doing with the 400.
Let's if you're done with your comment, then we'll have you sit back down and have Jamie come up to answer those questions. Thank you for your comment.
So with the scale of what we're doing, anything that gets developed is going to be phased over time. And right now, the land south of yours is what we're calling sub-area 1, which is zoned for industrial and data center
Yeah.
use.
You're gonna need water and you're gonna need sewer, correct?
Correct, yes.
Before even.
Now, there
You wanna
is.
do the buildings first?
There is water and sewer on Duncan Plains.
Cause there's a house behind us, you're gonna tear down too, right, on Duncan Plains. I think
I'd have to look at the map to confirm. But we probably will be additional demolitions to prepare the site. Now, if you're there and an industrial development happens as your neighbor, we'll work with you, make sure there's the appropriate setbacks, landscaping.
Buffering.
buffers, all that. It's written in the PD zone,
But so why did these 2 houses get sold? This one's coming down across the street. So something's coming. Is it gonna be water? Is it gonna be electric? Something's coming. I can see the houses that are being torn down are nice houses. So something's happening.
So there's an
Well, we
industrial,
don't get to know.
there's an,
Secret?
no, it's been rezoned for industrial use.
We know that, yeah.
And they haven't come back with their final plan yet. So no one knows exactly what's gonna be built there. We've just approved it for an industrial rezoning, and we'll find out.
See, because we're that white dot, see, we got this two white, yeah.
So I can tell you that nothing's been approved other than the rezoning and the preliminary plan, so they haven't found the tenant for the site. In reality, is that they haven't, it's up to them to decide what they're gonna build there.
Two pieces of property.
It's been rezoned for industrial, but they haven't come to us and said that we haven't approved any particular company or a particular facility to be on that location yet. Does that make sense?
Still build a building
They're still
and then
gonna
get the
build.
tenant?
No. So our role in the process is from a master planner, think of us as we focus on horizontal development. So zoning, utilities, entitlements, and land prep. And then we will sell the land to an end user that will then construct the building. They might have a third party construct it for them, most likely. But we will not build the building, the party we're gonna sell the land to. Now, we will work with the city to develop a site plan that works for the city, the end user, and the neighbors.
Like the design.
The design, the site plan, the setbacks, and along with that, it'll also have commitments from water use, sanitary use, and power as well. Now, candidly, a lot of the development, the phasing, we are at the mercy of utility companies right now from a timing perspective. And but in the meantime, what we're trying to do is prep the land so that what our company does as a service is turnkey, and the end users, we like to minimize all the risk of the unknown, so that's why we're kind of doing the legwork up front. What happens with the site selection groups now is the speed to market is crazy to me sometimes, but companies will say, they'll find a site and they'll be like, okay, we want to be shovel ready in the ground in 6 months. So we have to get all this work done ahead of time, and that's where we take the risk, is prepping the work.
But when you look at the lineup
Yeah.
of your guys' development, we're this one little white spot.
Yes.
Right, everything's, you know what white spot we are?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
So why haven't we got nothing?
Why weere what?
Why have you been an
We were
offer?
approached one time.
Okay.
I understand New Albany Company.
Okay.
I found out about the 990s. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Let's
We'll talk later.
Yeah, you can certainly call the New Albany Company or the Johnstown Land Development and let them know that you're interested in selling. That should be something we're.
Keep the rural out there, right? Can you tear that down?
So I want to go ahead and refocus. I want to go ahead and refocus our meeting here. I think that we're extended our 3 minutes, and you guys can know the direction, right? If there's any other specific information we can provide,
We just wanted to know. The timing.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I can send them any of the meeting minutes or the plans that were submitted to the council back in October. And at the very least, that'll give them all the information that they can run through. It's a pretty hefty document, but this was all vetted through council meetings and zoning meetings over the last,
Yeah, there's plenty of information we can provide to you, so reach out to the city, reach out to New Albany Company. At this time, I think for our commission meeting tonight, we're going to go ahead and move on if that's all right with you guys, if that makes sense. But definitely feel free to reach out to the city. And if you want to go ahead and give your email to them, they can, Sean and Teresa can email you some of that information that we have. We'll be more than happy to.
I mean,
The plan's all listed in
understand
there.
my frustration.
Yeah, no, I totally get the frustration.
Large change going on in Lincoln County. Very large change going in Johnstown, Ohio. I've lived in this house 18 years, and I know nothing.
No, I totally understand your frustration. We'd be more than happy to provide you with information.
There's maps and explanations of what's coming in there. So you can look on the map, see where your property's located.
Yeah, I can see everything I know.
No, I'm talking about the plan that they're gonna email you.
all these plans were, gosh, how many meetings did you guys have?
A lot of meetings.
There's a lot of
A lot of
YouTube
residents came.
Six
videos
months.
available too. That was, yeah,
6 months.
it was about 6 months worth.
Between council and zoning.
Did anybody have any other questions for the applicant here on this application?
Nope.
Just that it feels like a formality.
Okay. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve application 4-26-40.
Second.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Ben Lee.
Yes.
Kristen Harrison.
Yes.
Steve Dyer.
Yes.
A resounding yes.
All right, we'll move on to number 9 on our agenda, application 4-26-50. 11717 Duncan Plains Road demolition permit application, same applicant. Sean, kick it back to you. Is there any background on the other additional background on this one?
I will be sensitive to time. This is a mirror situation as to what you just looked at, so I'll spare you all the.
Do any of the commission members have a question for our applicant regarding this property?
No.
No, the only thing that I guess I should have said it on the other one to be fair, but I just want to make sure that the sites are, they're brought back to grass. I'm sure you guys will do this, but all the sites of any demolition, we need to get code and we need to get, rules established for this. We're a bit behind the 8 ball, sorry. But yeah, so anyways, we need to get on that, but obviously it goes without saying that we need to make sure that these sites are brought back to grass. Everything's taken down, all foundations are taken out, all the usual things that you get with a demolition. Any materials, building materials left, taken off the site, try to go back to as natural as possible until obviously the major upheaval will happen eventually. But in the meantime, since we don't know how long it will be before these sites are developed, we want them to look as natural as possible in the meantime.
Yes, and we intend to maintain sites when appropriate too, as
Right.
well, whether it's, we need to cut the grass in certain scenarios, in some cases it's more appropriate to just not cut the grass.
Yep.
All right, public comment, you guys get another chance? Okay. Any other commissioner thoughts? All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Me.
Ben Lee.
Jesse Cobble.
Yep.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Ben Lee.
Yes.
Kristen Harrison.
Yes.
Steve Dyer.
Yes.
We put emphatic yes for C.
That a big exclamation point behind it.
What's another number?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 10, final plat, Concord Crossing East Phase 3. Do we have, our applicant is not here, I guess?
The applicant is not. I think I had a email, at this point, I'm not even sure. I think there was an email with one of the board members.
Deliriously tired?
Yes, and I think the question was asked about the applicant, and my reply to that board member was, find it, Ben.
It was me and you said no.
All right.
They don't typically show
I
up.
said, I don't believe anyone will be present tonight. This application could be tabled if that is the desire. So what you have, see you, Mr. McNally. What you have before you is the plat map. It's associated with that project that's already been preliminarily approved through this particular body. Last time I attached the kind of developer's agreement that was associated with that. Can't remember if that is also in your packet, but if not, I can attach that as well. Oh, goody. All right. So that is in there just as a reference. This exercise was done last October, maybe earlier than that, so I'll correct myself. But that's really it. You want to check it for consistencies with the original preliminary plat to see if there's any changes, and if you want to wait until the applicant comes in to answer any of those questions, totally fine to do that.
I would like to make a point on that point, because you brought it up.
Point on a point.
Mere seconds before I was.
I knew you were coming to it, so I wanted to beat you to it.
As we had put in the PD language, I am going to ask we push back on the developer to provide us a list of changes between the preliminary and the final. Because I'm,
As the board, you have the authority to ask for
with the
additional items. I
detail-
think it's totally appropriate.
with the detail that is given in all aspects of these reviews and the nature with which this is being presented in chunks, I don't know
It's hard to
where
track.
all of those notes are.
Yeah, we haven't
And-
looked at it
You
since
don't have a
last
red line version,
Since
so
last
you can't.
October.
And for
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
project, they should know what that is. And I would ask that it be given to us in a timely manner to be able to compare between the two, and that it be submitted as official record and not just supplement to something else, but on the record as what they're saying is the difference between the two.
Do you have all that down?
I do.
We will get back with the applicant and know that you're requesting additional items. And I think they're totally appropriate, putting the labor of work on that particular entity rather than redirecting it to staff is very helpful and appreciated, so.
And I'm a little frustrated that, did they ask for this to be initiated tonight?
Yes and no. So from a formality standpoint, they checked all the boxes on the submittal process, so.
So if they want it to be submitted, I need somebody to tell me what to look at.
I don't disagree.
And the fact that there isn't a representative here doesn't bode well for what they're trying to put forth and ask us to review.
I think this is the second time that this has happened too.
So.
So I would like to make a formal request that they show up to present their next meeting also.
I mean, I would think that would be
I
normal.
don't think there'll be any issue, so. This was submitted by their engineer.
Okay.
So now we just need to
So-
table it?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to number 11 on our agenda, zoning inspector report. Hey, give us the rundown, my friend.
The zoning meeting. How many pools?
Business is picking up.
How many pools? Where's the
How
pool?
many pools?
I want to go.
The pool. Give me a second and I'll tell you where the pool's going.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Pool is going over on 236 Weeping Willow.
Where is that? Where's Weeping Willow?
Leafy Dell.
Leafy Dell.
Leafy Dell?
Leafy Dell.
Nice.
Testing. Steve Dyer, testing.
Does anybody else have any questions for Terry?
I have a list. I'll get it to you.
I know there's been some interest in the high grass. I've probably given out, I quit recording it on my spreadsheet, but I've probably recorded over 35, 40 violations
Do
throughout
you
the
just
city.
give warnings? Is that what you do?
I give them a friendly reminder. It's a little yellow piece of paper with the ordinance on it and my phone number, and if they have any questions, they can give me a call. And I get some calls,
My neighbor.
we go from there. We used to have violation notices, and I thought that was a little harsh, so I made it friendly reminders.
Oh, there you go.
I like it.
And,
City manager?
It's, the grass is growing like crazy.
yeah.
It's
It's
impossible.
really hard. My guy only comes once a week.
It's impossible to keep up. And you got, yeah.
So rather than send out the certified letter right off the
Yeah.
road, sometimes it's actually more beneficial from a cost perspective for the city if we
Just send it, like, give a note.
do a note, and then if we don't get any action upon the note.
Well, somebody
then-
may
then-
not know that you have to cut it
Thanks
6
for my trash
inches or
can
lower,
notice.
right?
Sure.
You mentioned you got last meeting.
I didn't know there was a rule.
Kids didn't get their allowance
But
out.
I appreciate that work because, as the city grows, a lot of times that gets lost. And I think that's
Yeah.
important work. So.
I don't discriminate. Everybody gets a notice.
Thanks for my notice.
That's very nice of you.
Trash can.
Dang.
You know that's one of my
zoning
pet
board, huh?
Not the recycle bin.
Commissioner Lee would support me on that.
That takes guts, Terry. That takes guts.
I don't look up the residents when I'm out there. I just come up when I get back.
No opposition to it.
All right.
It's the kid's fault. It's their job.
Hearing no other questions, thank you, Terry. Do we have any other, item number 12, have any other items on the agenda, other business not on the agenda?
Nope.
Not hearing none.
Move to adjourn.
Ben makes a motion to adjourn, I second.
Aye.
Good work.